Have you ever wondered why some people seem naturally empathetic while others, like narcissists, struggle with empathy? The answer might lie in how their brains are wired. We're going to dive into some of that today, but before we do, subscribe, give a thumbs up, drop some comments below, questions, what's working for you, what this brings up for you, struggles, all that stuff. I love to interact with you guys. Okay, we're going to dive into some brain wiring today as it relates to narcissism and as it relates to empathy. And I'm going to get a little sciencey with you. I'm going to refer to my notes a little bit if I look away from the camera. But I think it's valuable to really understand some of these details because as I've shared them with people around me, when I was learning it, have learned it, they find that it really humanizes the situation. And it's easier for the non-narcissist to not take it as personally when the narcissist acts weird or as a narcissist. So we're going to talk about two brain structures in particular. One is called the medial prefrontal cortex, or the medial PFC, and the other is called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. And these are two of the primary brain structures that have to do with empathy. So considering how another person might feel, putting yourself in their shoes, and then processing or emotional regulation, which then goes from seeing how someone else might feel to then feeling something, and that leads again to responding in a way that's normal. And so the way that works a little more in depth is the ACC, or the anterior cingulate cortex, detects emotionally salient stimuli. In other words, a friend's distress when they're expressing to you. And it evaluates their significance. So for example, the ACC may activate in response to like an emotional conflict or some other empathy eliciting solution. So this is when they hook up the electrodes to the brain and start watching what activates, what fires when different things happen. So under those stimuli, like a friend expressing distress or being in the middle of a conflict or seeing other people in conflict, that starts to fire the ACC. And so that's the part of our brain that detects emotions that aren't ours and starts to translate that in our brain. Then the medial PFC, or prefrontal cortex, processes these signals and then integrates them with a self-referential information. Meaning, that's the part of the brain that asks the question, how would I feel in that situation? So your friend is there telling you about how annoying and horrible their boss is and how much stress that puts them under. The ACC detects that, okay, this person's in distress, but the prefrontal cortex then allows our brain to ask that question, like, how would I feel if that was my boss? And then contextual knowledge to regulate the emotions and generate that appropriate response. So you witness someone's sadness, the ACC flags the emotional importance. Okay, this is sadness, we should notice this. And then the prefrontal cortex, or the medial prefrontal cortex, helps interpret the cause of their sadness and then helps modulate your emotional response, like empathy or sympathy. So in a narcissist, when they've hooked narcissists up to these same electrodes and other imaging, what they found is that there's reduced gray matter in these regions of the brain. So in our brain, there's gray matter and white matter, generally speaking. Gray matter is the nerve cells themselves, the neurons. And the white matter is all the connections, all the axons and dendrites, all the ways those connect, the wires. And so when there's less gray matter, that means there's actually less brain cells in those regions. So that really explains a lot of the behavior or lack of behavior of the narcissist related to empathy. And not just related to empathy, but related to that second stage, the active, the action or the production of a response related to the feelings of the other. And so not only does it have reduced gray matter, but there's also a reduction in that connectivity, is what they found as well. And so in some ways, it's kind of like the narcissist brain does that first step. So somebody is that same situation, the friend is talking about their terrible boss, how stressful that is. And the narcissist brain can pick that up and identify, at least in the ACC, the first area, that person is in distress and that's what they're expressing. But then connecting that information over to the medial prefrontal cortex in order to then ask, how would I feel? And then respond appropriately relative to the answer to that question, that is weaker. And so it's not that the narcissist has the inability to experience somebody else's emotions or experience that the other person's having an emotion. and what that emotion is. It really is about that then connecting to the centers of the brain that would naturally, if everything was connected properly, roll into an empathetic response, that question of how would I feel, and then the response part being what I would say to the me that is experiencing that thing. So it's kind of like, you know, like you get the signal, like your phone, right? You get the notifications, you got a message, but then you're never able to actually hit the button to open what that message is. So you know the messages are coming, and you might even know who it's from, right? Being a message from mom, but you can't actually open the app to then see what mom said. That's sort of like a crude example of how it works in the narcissist brain. But what's cool about this is, just like all the other structures in our brain, the more current understanding of neurology and how neurophysiology works is we can rewire our brain. Our brains are more plastic than science has thought for many decades. And so the more we can practice consciously those connections, the more we can actually start to build them. The nerves, the neurons that fire together, wire together is what they say. And so if you can consciously practice getting those neurons to fire together, that those pathways will become stronger and you can actually start to develop empathy. That takes some real awareness, conscious effort, and so forth. And it's a long time process. Don't expect that you can do that a couple times for a few weeks and then suddenly have empathy as a normal person. I don't know if we can ever, as adults, change it completely, but we can certainly improve our ability to have those empathic responses. Little asterisk or side note, as I was starting to explore this territory, I noticed as a narcissist that I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted that. And I don't know if that sounds strange or not, but when the people I've known around me who are sort of the most empathic or emotionally based, a lot of times it seems like, from my perspective, it seems like pretty terrible. Like they're in a lot of pain. They're like dragged around by their emotions. It's very distracting. They act irrationally. All these things that are kind of foreign to the narcissist brain, especially the covert narcissist. And so it's like, do I really want that? Do I really want to feel more? Do I really want empathy? Because it kind of looks like a raw deal. Now, at times when those people are really happy, that seems great. But I was never sure if that was a good trade-off. But what I've discovered is, as I've kind of been going through this process of awakening to the narcissism and all the things I've been sharing, it's been happening, right? I've been actually experiencing empathy, the little, early budding shoots of empathy. And I discovered I actually like it. So if it's a foreign thing to you, if you're in that same place where you're like, I don't know if I want to feel things more because, emotional people seem like it's a pretty rough way to be, I get it. I don't think it's a thing we have to really worry about as narcissists. I don't think we'll ever swing on the pendulum all the way over there. But I have enjoyed the feeling of empathy. I've really actually liked it. And so there's a little bit of maybe hopeful direction for you. Let me know in the comments, have you had that same experience? Has it sucked? Where are you at in that process? All right, remember to subscribe, give some thumbs up, likes, drop some comments below, questions, concerns, what's working for you. I'd love to interact and learn from you guys. All right, take care.